Tavares gets it to the end zone. Jump ball. Touchdown, Norwood! Jackson Ponds. Touchdown.
Live from our Seton Hill University studios, this is Westmoreland on the Gridiron on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here's your host, Sean Meyers.
Welcome into another episode of Westmoreland on the Gridiron each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m. I'm Sean Meyers. That's Dan Flickinger. I point straight ahead, but that's not really pointing at you. But
I think if I point this way, it goes the other way. It gets opposite. I don't know. I don't understand.
He's somewhere around here. Glad to be back again. We've got a lot to get to on this show. It's going to be another jam-pack. Yeah, I say that every week, but it's true every week. We're going to run down all of the scores from week 2. We're going to have the top performers, the plays of the week, some great interviews. Benny Hoffer, the head coach of the Yough Cougars, got his first head coaching victory. Roman Sarnic, our player of the week for Franklin Regional. We're also going to welcome in our colleague, Jack Ridenauer, to talk about Hempfield area and Greater Latrobe, particularly the Spartans. They're off to a 3-0 start, courtesy of their 49-14 victory over the Wildcats. And we'll wrap up with a look ahead to the week 3 ledger of games, some really good ones upcoming throughout Westmoreland County. But Flick, let's start with some big stories. And for the second week in a row, we have to talk about not a Westmoreland County team necessarily winning, but McKeesport knocking off another title contender here in Westmoreland County. They got the better of Penn Trafford last week. This time they shut down the offense of the Bell Vernon area Leopards, and you did not say that very much at all in 2021. But final score in this one in favor of the Tigers, 14-6. I really, a lot of people said Bell Vernon's going to have an easy path in 3A. They still might, but I think that this showed that this team might not just dominate all throughout the regular season like they did a year ago. Quentin Martin really just couldn't find any luck. And now you have to wonder, without a guy like Devin Whitlock, how much more difficult his life's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have that. Whitlock himself was a dual threat quarterback, but then you had, I guess, the triple threat. He was a dual threat himself, and then you had Quentin Martin. I guess that makes sense. But anyway, it was an offense that certainly was a lot different last year because of that threat of Devin Whitlock. And you graduate him. Matt Humbert said after the game, listen, we're still breaking in guys from on the offensive side. I think people look at Bell Vernon and see Quentin Martin and just assume that they brought back everybody. Well, no, they brought back a hell of an athlete, a Division I athlete that has, offers out the yin yang, but they still have a lot of guys that are new. And, Matt Humbert said it's a process. They're still getting better. And, to play a non-conference game like this, again, I think it just makes your team better. You can see where you need to get to in order, to get to where you want to get at the end of the season. But, we had a chance to see Boyd a couple of weeks ago against Penn Trafford, 3 interceptions, another huge one he takes back to the house to give McKeesport a 14-0 lead in this game. And then you look at the McKeesport, defense. Other than Boyd, they limit Bell Vernon to just 28 yards on the ground. I mean, that is a tremendous effort by McKeesport. Obviously, Bell Vernon plays really well at home. They were playing at McKeesport. That certainly favored the Tigers as well. But man, are they going to be a tough team to knock off this season? I mean, they're just very athletic, and with Boyd leading the way for them, it's just amazing, Sean. Like, we knew how good he was last year, but I think he just took an astronomical step this year. And I mean, he's just so good.
And it's interesting because you had the call last year when these teams met, and it was pretty lopsided in favor of Bell Vernon area.
Yeah, I mean, they were really able to limit him, and I mentioned this a bunch of times. I know even on the broadcast when PT played them, just how hard Bobby ran against Bell Vernon, but they were able to control the line of scrimmage against him. Guys like Cole Waitman. I mean, if you look at Bell Vernon last year, they did lose some guys off of both sides of the football, but they were really able to kind of control him. I think they were able to use some big plays as well, which maybe took McKeesport out of the offense that they like to run. Right. It didn't happen this year. The Tigers defense did not allow Bell Vernon to get ahead. As a matter of fact, again, McKeesport took that early lead and ended up winning. But, one of the keys to beat McKeesport certainly is to win on first and second down and also get a lead. But we've seen for how many years under George Smith, whoever's coaching there, it's tough to do against McKeesport, but the teams that can do it do have some success. But this year's team, it's going to be tough to win those first and second downs and also get ahead.
Well, let me pose this final question to you on this. No coach wants to see his team lose, but for a team in Bell Vernon area that went undefeated in the regular season, won 2 playoff games, they went into the championship maybe a little overconfident. And we heard Quentin Martin say that in camp. Could there be a benefit to losing this game early and maybe showing them we're not as good as what we thought we were potentially?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's like a silver lining, right? I mean, obviously you don't go out and for Matt Humbert and I hope we lose the game so we can work on some things. I mean, obviously you want to win. It's better to work on some things after a win, but yeah, I absolutely, they can garner something out of this. And again, kind of see what obviously they're not going to see McKeesport again, being in different classifications, but you can kind of see what you need to get to in order to be a good team like that with, again, some really good players coming back, but also a lot of new faces for Bell Vernon this year.
Yeah, remember, it was a couple of losses by Penn Trafford in the regular season that maybe sparked them ultimately to championships. So if you're going to lose a game, lose it in the regular season. The Leopards did that. We'll see how they rebound. By the way, they take on Penn Trafford, so it's not going to get any easier. They go from McKeesport to Penn Trafford. They will be battle-tested by the time they begin the interstate. Speaking of interstate conference teams, how about Mount Pleasant area? This is a team that's a little overlooked, but man, their offense has shown some dynamic ability. And we thought it would just be Robbie Labuda through the first 2 weeks. And that was the case by and large. But this past week, everyone got involved. They were really, really dominant. And so when you look at this team, it's not just Labuda. Cole Chatfield, their sophomore quarterback, has shown a lot. Ultimately, Lane Golkowski gains Labuda on the ground in their 50-28 victory against McGuffey. Yeah, they're playing a 2A school, but McGuffey's a good team. I really feel like this might be the best offense we have seen in a long, long time for Mount Pleasant, maybe going back to the Bo Ruffner days.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they scored 35 points against Greensburg Central Catholic too, don't forget. And I know they gave up 56, but from an offensive perspective, and GCC is really, really good this year. So to be able to do that and then score 35 against a Yough team that, is still trying to find its way this year. You'll be talking with Coach Hoffer a little bit later, and then to put 50 on McGuffey, as you mentioned, Sean, they're very, very solid year after year. And I know it's a different classification, but offense is offense, and to be able to hang 50 on them, I thought was impressive. And I thought something else was impressive too, not just the way that they were to move the football, but they really capitalized on some McGuffey mistakes. The Highlanders, they fumbled twice, and they also they also threw an interception. Mount Pleasant was able to score off of each one of those turnovers. And as you know, Sean, like if you're able to capitalize on turnovers, you take a 35-28 game into a 50-28 game pretty quick when you can capitalize, on those turnovers. And that's what Mount Pleasant did. That's what good teams do. But you're right. I mean, it's really nice to see new players emerging. And I think that's important for Mount Pleasant because they run the football so often. They need other running backs other than, you need to, what Robbie does is special, and you need to continue to see that from him, and you will for sure. But you do need some other guys contributing in the backfield for as often as they run it. And I think you saw that from Golkowski, Dante Gianleonardo as well. So they're really clicking right now on all cylinders are the Vikings.
Yeah, and they get Tyler Reese back, and he delivers a really nice performance. This is a guy that was a quarterback a year ago. He's transitioned to receiver, and it seems like overall they're just more dynamic on that side of the football. Well, it's pretty straightforward what the Burrell Buccaneers are going to do on offense this season, and we heard from their head coach, Sean Liotta, last week. They're going to run it almost every single time. Well, they did that, and they improved to 3-0. They win a thriller. All of their games have come down to the wire. They didn't need overtime this time. They instead got a late field goal to edge their rival Valley Vikings. It was Burrell 30, Valley 27. The Buccaneers now join Hempfield area as undefeated teams of Westmoreland County. And, it was a real rough go last year for most of the season. They kind of, if you want to use the term, they kind of snuck their way into the playoffs. They're not going to apologize for getting into the playoffs with a losing record, but it does seem like that's carried over. And a guy like Devin Beatty has become an absolute workhorse after Caden DiCaprio was a workhorse last year. Skill-wise, probably not competing with some of the better teams that they're going to see. But toughness-wise, I think they're up there with just about anyone they'll ever go against.
Yeah, that's the first thing that I heard this season when describing Burrell. I actually talked with Don Pecora, who is the East Allegheny head coach, and they scrimmaged Burrell the day before our kickoff show. And we ordered pizza from Dom's. I'm going to give him a shout out for that. But I asked Dom, I said, how did the scrimmage go yesterday? He said, we did well, but Burrell's tough. They are a tough team this year, very physical. And I thought it was interesting, Sean, when you talked with Sean Liotta last week, you brought up a good question. And I like asking coaches this too, like, do you try to run what you run no matter what and what you believe in, or do you adapt to what the team's strengths are? And, Sean is a football genius, and I'm sure he would like to spread it out and throw the football, but he knows where they're going to get wins, and that is with running the football, which they do like 99% of the time, and just wear you down. And that's what happened last week. I will give credit, though, to Valley. Burrell led in that game 27-14. Valley did make it interesting at the end there, certainly, but Ryan Crushore with the field goal. And by the way, Coach Liotta called him Legatron after the game, which was interesting. I don't think I've ever heard that.
I feel like that's every kicker's nickname if they make an important kick at this point. But,
except Cincinnati's kick. No, it wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault, I guess. But anyway, getting back to the Burrell and Valley game, that's a big win for Burrell. I mean, that's a rivalry win. And they have to be on cloud nine, right now. Again, first 3-0 start since 2012. And it's so great to see, again, these teams starting out hot that maybe you wouldn't expect. And it makes for a really good story. And again, they put in so much hard work. They got to feel great heading into, next week's game, which is against, I had it up here, Sean, and now we'll talk about that a little bit later on here. So
it's at Sarah Catholic. It's
at
not
Sarah Catholic. So obviously things are, as the expression goes, it's not going to get any easier next week. Especially being on the road. But hey, I guess we will see what Burrell has and how they can stack up.
Yeah, going against a championship squad in the Eagles. But one thing that Coach Liotta mentioned last week, he said, if we win, our seniors can move on with their life's work saying we never lost against Valley. So the seniors
right.
go 4-0 against the Vikings. So that
and we laugh, but rivalry games, those are things you remember for sure. We went 4-0 against. Yeah.
Did you win any rivalry matchups in your career?
So our biggest rival was Latrobe, being, from Derry. And we won my sophomore year, because at the time, which is crazy to think this way, there used to be freshman football teams, and now barely any schools, even the big ones, have freshman teams. Penn Trafford's one of the few in the area. But our sophomore year, we beat Latrobe, and I'll never forget the atmosphere. I'll never forget how excited everybody was. Next 2 years, we may have lost to Latrobe. But that first year, I'll never forget. I think it was 14-6 was the score, and it was just unbelievable. So you always remember, and I remember beating Mount Pleasant, Yough, when it was like negative 20 degrees. But we don't need to revisit all my.
Yeah, now you just got bragging rights over all of Westmoreland County, I guess. Huh?
Yeah, I won't mention the times that we may have lost to them. I'll just mention the times where we beat them. But yeah, those are games you always remember, man. So again, kudos to the Burrell Bucks.
Yeah, absolutely. Props to Burrell for that unbeaten start. They in Hempfield area, both 3-0. We'll take a break, but we'll come back and talk a little bit about Hempfield area. Jack Ridenauer will drop in and join us. We'll also run down all of the scores and top performers from week 2. And a little bit later, we'll get to plays of the week, our great interviews with Yough's Benny Hoffer and Roman Sarnic, the player of the week of Franklin Regional, as well as a week 3 preview. That's all coming as we roll along right here each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m., Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
We know speaking with your teen or your young adult about drugs and alcohol can be challenging, but is necessary. Remember to have a conversation, not a confrontation. Establish good communications, break through barriers, and be firm but loving. Here are some helpful tips. Choose a good place and time to chat. Talk with openness. Actively listen. Offer empathy and support. For more information, visit us online at wedacinc.org. Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission. Prevention is key.
That's the power of Bowser. Yeah.
Coach, building a championship team, I know for you, it's all about the details. The same goes with the Bowsers.
No doubt about it. I mean, it's the tiny little details every single day, not forgetting about it the next day and maybe doing it the following day. I mean, I think details are everything.
As Coach says, get your eyes right on the power of Bowser.
The Bowser family is proud to have Coach Narduzzi as part of our team.
And welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Your home for high school football talk all across Westmoreland County. Meyers, Dan Flickinger, and we're now joined by one of our colleagues, Jack Ridenour, as he's going to get into talking about the Hempfield area Spartans and Greater Latrobe Wildcats. We'll run down all the scores in a little bit, but Jack, we really want to focus on what was a game that I think had a lot of buzz, and not many people probably expected a couple weeks ago that Greater Latrobe and Hempfield area would both be undefeated. Pretty special environment on Friday night. What were your biggest takeaways from that Spartans victory?
I mean, just right when you walk into the stadium, you could tell that it was an incredible showing from both stands in terms of just the fans from Latrobe as well as Hempfield. Hempfield traveled great. Obviously, school's really close by, but I thought that was the big thing, just all the buzz that was around that game from all the different fans and whatnot. But I think really what stood out to me was both teams started out pretty even, I would say. Colin Stevens from Latrobe with a kickoff return for touchdown. And then all of a sudden, Hempfield just stomped on the gas pedal, and they never looked back. And you could just tell that this is, again, a very different Hempfield team from a year ago. Same guys, same starters from a year ago, but a lot stronger, a lot better, a lot faster, playing with a larger sense of urgency. There was a lot of things that stood out, but I think the main thing was just how Hempfield was able to just build a bunch of separation, and they never looked back.
Jack, I thought what was interesting talking to you after the game was, I mean, Geno Caesar's had a terrific season, Jake Phillips, Eli Benikonski, but you mentioned some other guys, too, that really stood out to you in that game.
Yeah, Ian Tufts is a name that comes to mind. I don't think that he gets enough recognition for what he does to their offense. 6'4", 185. He's been a regular starter at the varsity level since he was a sophomore. And you could tell him and Phillips are on the same page. I mean, they work like they're on a string together. They are very, very good together. He had a nice diving catch into the back of the end zone for a touchdown. He's really been impressive for me, and I have been really pleased with just how well he has played. And like you said, Eli Benikonski, but some other names, I mean, Ethan Shaw defensively, he has been all over the place. He has played really, really well. Logan Eisenman, he's also been playing really well. I think across the board, this whole group, and I mentioned to you, Dan, I think I've mentioned to you, Sean, just they seem so much more composed and comfortable and confident. Last year, it was very evident. They didn't have much repetition starting at the varsity level. They did not have much experience, and it showed, right? I mean, they go 2-1 through their first 3 games last year, and then they lose the rest of the games in their season. So this year, totally different, and I've mentioned it to both of you. This tempo of play and this pace of play that Hempfield is showing right now, I mean, if you're not running, 100-yard sprints in practice to get ready for it, you're not going to be prepared for Friday night.
Well, I want to build upon that point, Jack. Obviously we see the final score 49-14, but to your point, it was 14 all, and then they took over second quarter, certainly the third quarter, they were dominant. And I talked to Coach Ron Brady for Greater Latrobe, and he said, I think our guys tired down a little bit because of the pace of Hempfield area. So did you see something similar where they go so quick that eventually the defense, as the game goes on, they're not going to be able to keep up?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, and I've talked to some of the guys on Hempfield, and they've mentioned that this is, and when I talked to Coach Mike Brown last week, he even noted that they've never done a conditioning drill while he's been the head coach. They've never done one in practice, but it's just the way that they practice. It's the speed in which that they're practicing at. And I mean, it's hard for some of these teams to really keep up. I mean, you look over at Latrobe, and guys were getting tired. Guys were having to come off the sideline. Guys were catching cramps. And that's another thing. I know it's early in the season. I know that it's still technically summer, quote unquote, still warmer. Guys are getting cramps. I've had, I've seen maybe 2 or 3 instances of guys on Hempfield having cramps in the last 3 games. Nobody's catching cramps on this team. Again, it's so much better shape. Their conditioning is so much better. Their strength, and really it goes to Jake Phillips. Jake Phillips, the being the conductor that he is of this offense, getting guys to the line of scrimmage in between plays. That's where they're, I think, making the biggest difference. Is they're spending very little time in between plays. So defense, I mean, there's been a few times where, and actually I think Roger Downs mentioned it on the call last week against Latrobe. Latrobe only had 9 guys on the field at one play. They didn't get there was no flag that was thrown, but they only had 9 guys out defensively because they simply can't get guys to go back out onto the field in enough time before Hempfield's already getting the ball down to the next line of scrimmage and snapping it.
Jack, this was supposed to be a matchup, a showdown between Geno Caesar and Robbie Fulton. Obviously, Geno had a great game. Robbie, who has had tremendous success early this season, his first year as a Wildcat, he was only held to, 42 yards. So what was the Hempfield defense able to do to keep him in check?
I think they just kept throwing bodies at him. I mean, when Hempfield is sending guys, and especially up front, they're sending 3 or 4 guys at a time. And I think also on top of it, Robbie Fulton, he's getting a lot of repetition. Coming into the game, he was averaging about 250 yards on the ground. I mean, 250 yards on the ground. That's a lot of yardage. And I remember last year, this is a situation I remember talking to Roger Downs about this. Last year, Geno Caesar, he got a lot of reps. And as the season went on, he started to get a little banged up. And I think that we're seeing that same thing this year with Latrobe, where Robbie Fulton comes out really strong in the first few weeks. And what I fear about him and for the Wildcats, it just overall is his health. Is he going to be able to be durable? And is he going to be able to have the stamina to withstand an entire season of carrying the ball 30, 40 times a game? I really think that Hempfield did a great job of just slowing him down in terms of just sending guys 3 or 4 tacklers at him. But in all honesty, I think that it was more of a self-inflicted thing because he's just getting so many carries, and I think it just wore him down.
Jack, you have the Spartans again this week. We're going to be broadcasting Hempfield area against Shaler area, and the Titans coming off of a nice victory as well. So this is not a conference matchup, but in your opinion, how big of a game is this for Hempfield area to keep this going heading into the conference that's looming?
Oh, it's enormous. It really is, because where their schedule after this is Penn Trafford, Gateway, and Seneca Valley. 3 of the top teams in Class 5A, if you ask me. I mean, Penn Trafford, reigning state champions, right? Seneca Valley, and we've seen what they are capable of doing. And not to mention, Seneca Valley destroyed Hempfield last year. Actually, Chris Smith and I were on hand for that one a year ago. And then Gateway, that's another not an easy opponent to go up against. So I think that they have to take care of business against Shaler this Friday, because if they don't, that's going to be a loss that looms over them. It's going to bother them. And you do not want to carry that with you, especially at the beginning of conference play. Now these conference games are going to start picking up. Things are going to start becoming a lot more serious in terms of the playoffs. And that's something else that is kind of hovering around the program at Hempfield. We have to remember, gentlemen, that this has been a team that has struggled over the years. First 3-0 start for them in many years, since 2016, if I'm not mistaken. They haven't been to the playoffs in years. They haven't won a playoff game since 1997. So I think that they're not only playing for just this strong start of the season or for this senior group. I think that they're playing for this entire football program and bringing some life around the football program at Hempfield.
Jack, good stuff. We appreciate your insight. I know you're excited to see the Spartans again. And
Jack, did you step on Rogers' toes at all and say "Hail Caesar" at any point during the game last week? Because I didn't hear it.
I would never do that. I would never take Hail Caesar away from the Roger Downs. That would be so uncouth of me.
When he's doing public address, you can't take it away from him. You'd literally have to pull the microphone away from him. But I guess when you're working alongside him, you can kind of do that. But hopefully he gets to say it many, many more times to come this season with the way the Spartans are going right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hail Caesar call from Roger Downs is music to my ears.
Jack, thanks so much for doing this, and we look forward to hearing you on Friday night in another big one in 5A between Hempfield area and Shaler area.
Gentlemen, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for having me today.
All right. The one and only Jack Ridenauer. We appreciate him joining us and giving that insight. And Flick, you and I saw the Spartans as well, and we wandered through one week They beat Greensburg-Salem and they destroyed them in really a half a game. Would it keep up? Well, so far so good. And the natural tendency for us is probably to doubt how long it's going to last and say they won't be able to keep it up all season long. It's only going to get more and more difficult because they've played some smaller schools than them. Now they're playing 5A. They're going to head into the conference. Jack mentioned Seneca Valley, a really good 6A team. So it's going to, play out over the next month or so. But I think that they have a chance to make the playoffs. And only 2 teams are guaranteed in. You think Gateway and PT, heavy favorites. You could get a wild card as a third place team. But I don't think they're thinking that right now. They're thinking we're going to have a real chance to upset one of those teams to get in.
I think Jack brought up a good point with this Shaler game. If they lose it, does it really hurt them? Maybe not. But I think if you win it, man, like Shaler's pretty good this year. You win that game, you keep that momentum going, you keep that confidence going into a huge game against Penn Trafford. And, we want all of our Westmoreland County teams to do well, obviously. But I'm really excited that Hempfield has a legit chance to compete with some good teams this year, right? I mean, we want Hempfield to be able to do that. We want Norwin year after year to be able to do that. Now that they're in 5A, I think they're able to do that a little more. I don't want to say easier, but certainly they're more competitive against teams, in 5A than they were against the NAs and the Central Catholic. So that helps certainly. But it's exciting to see when teams like Derry had that big run, like Southmoreland got off to that tremendous start and finally broke the playoff drought. Like we want to see that with the teams that we cover. Burrell having a terrific season this year. So it's really exciting to me to be able to see that. And hey, if Hempfield wins this week, who knows? Maybe Penn Trafford beats Belvern. I mean, that would be an epic, potentially could be an epic clash, especially compared to years past.
And we don't encourage betting necessarily, but if anyone before the season went and put money on through 3 weeks, Hempfield area and Burrell would be the 2 remaining undefeated teams in Westmoreland County football. They would be very rich right now, I would think.
I was going to say it's a little different than a few years ago, Sean. Things have flipped just a bit.
Absolutely. Let's look at the rest of the scores. We've already talked about some of these, but you can go back and watch Penn Trafford 48, Woodland Hills 14 as the Warriors bounce back in a big way. That's a good win for them, and I think that they came out and they looked like a very motivated team that wanted to prove that that loss against McKeesport was not a sign of things to come. So now Penn Trafford to 2-1. They'll have another big one upcoming that we'll talk about a little bit later. The Norwin Knights get their first victory of 2022. They do so 27-13 against Fox Chapel. You can go back and watch that one. And one particular play that really stands out that I have a feeling we're going to see a little bit later. But
Dave Franzak literally texted me at halftime. I don't want to give it away, but he texted me at halftime and said, "This better be on Plays of the Week this week, what just happened." And I didn't know what happened, but you're going to see what happened in just a little bit.
Absolutely. You can go back and watch that one. You can also go back and watch Southmoreland defeating Derry area 28-14 in a battle of Westmoreland County teams. And, we were sort of conflicted on who we were going to get for our coach interview this week. It was almost Tim Bukowski because he, much like Coach Hoffer, got his first head coaching victory. So congratulations to him.
Yeah.
And I know that they've been competitive. They lost their first 2 against some pretty good competition. Now he gets that first victory. I'm sure that's a great, great feeling. So congratulations to Coach Bukowski and squad. And that's a nice win against Derry area as well. And I do think the Trojans, it's not going to be long before Mike Arone gets that first W as well.
Yeah, I agree. And, I know that Mike was disappointed after the game, talking to some newspaper folks that, his team didn't play its best in a game. You're at home against Southmoreland. I don't want to say one of your rivals, but when local teams play one another, you can throw that in there too. So Derry's looking for a bounce back this week. And then you look at Southmoreland, you mentioned Sean, Tim Bukowski. They put up some points this year. That's something they seemingly do, even, if they lose by a few touchdowns. They put up 28 points against McGuffey, 18 against Ligonier Valley, and then, of course, 28 against Derry. So not necessarily eye-popping point totals, but, they're putting up some points or having some traction on offense, and we'll see if they can keep this rolling with the Scotties. But they typically do. They're typically able to put some touchdowns on the board.
Yeah, and you got to say that Coach Bukowski is a big part of that because, remember, he's been the offensive coordinator.
Absolutely.
So he certainly knows how to get points on the board, and we'll see if the Scotties can now string together some wins. We already talked about it. Hempfield area 49, Greater Latrobe 14. First loss for the Wildcats. Spartans go to 3-0. You can go back and listen to that one. You can also listen to a dominant performance by Franklin Regional. The Panthers 40-0 defeat Connellsville. Falcons really having a rough go of it once again here in 2022. Other games across Westmoreland County, we highlighted this one in our open. McKeesport does it again. 14-6, they had in Bell Vernon area. Its first loss. The Leopards just could not get it going on offense. I think that's going to be a recurring theme against McKeesport all season long. Laurel Highlands had no problem getting the offense going. 37 for them and just 7 for Kiski area. After a great start a year ago, the Cavs now 0-3 to begin this season. Greensburg-Salem 35, Ligonier Valley 28. Golden Lions consecutive wins after that season opening loss to Hempfield area. And the Rams dropped their first contest. Pretty good matchup there in Westmoreland County. A couple teams able to play a nice competitive game and saw a lot of offense. We talked about it. The Burrell Buccaneers 30, the Valley Vikings 27. Burrell now 3-0. What a fun matchup that was. And it's not a conference game. Still always meaningful between those teams. We'll hear from the head coach for the Yough Cougars, Benny Hoffer, in a bit. He gets his first win, 14. Of power of Mount Pleasant area. The Vikings put a 50 spot on the board against McGuffey as they win 50-28. Other scores: Jefferson Morgan edges Jeanette 27-26 in overtime. Flick, really a heartbreaker for Jeanette. So close to getting that first victory for Coach Pallone.
Yeah, and it really came down to the first blocked extra point. Had Jeanette hit that extra point, they probably win the game. That was at the end of regulation with not much time left. And then they score first in overtime, miss the extra point. Jefferson Morgan scores, gets the extra point, and wins the game. So not only was it heartbreaking for a myriad of reasons, these kids putting in so much hard work, coming that close to winning, but to lose like that, just really, really a tough break. I'll be talking with Coach Pallone later on this week for our Jeanette pregame show. We're actually having Jeanette and Fraser on video this week. It's a Hall of Fame weekend for Jeanette, which you're really excited about, obviously, with the tradition. But, they're close, Sean. I mean, they're getting there. I think the next couple of games are certainly winnable games. That's a tough one to lose, but, hopefully they can find a way to win and celebrate their alumni this weekend.
I thought when you were describing the missed extra points in the overtime, you're talking Steelers-Bengals.
Well, yeah, it kind of mirrored what happened. Well, I don't think anything mirrored what happened in Cincinnati, but my gosh, we could do a whole segment on that mess.
We could also do a whole segment just running down the stats that Greensburg Central Catholic put up. They win 57-21 against West Green. And they didn't get much offensively in the second half against Bishop Canavan on that Saturday night game. They more than made up for it against the Pioneers. Again, I expect that will continue all season long. It is a dynamic offense that Marco Thomas has. Lastly, for high school scores, Monessen 42, Fraser 6, as the Greyhounds get their first win in 2022. And a couple of college scores, and unfortunately, our local teams both lost once again. It was a rough go, but for Seton Hill, Shippensburg 36 and the Griffins 17. So Seton Hill now 0-2. You can go back and watch that one. Washington and Jefferson 52, St. Vincent College 21. Yes, those are both PAC teams. It is not a PAC conference game. So although the Bearcats are 0-2, they are 0-0 in the games that really matter. A little confusing. Nonetheless, it's I swear those two football teams just match each other almost every single week, it seems.
Yeah, both teams, unfortunately, are 0-2. I think that both teams started with games that they feel like they should have won. Now, of course, St. Vincent going up against Washington Jefferson, that's always really, really tough. Seton Hill at Shippensburg, probably should have had a better showing. Didn't happen. So they go at it again, look for a victory at home, their first home game of the season against East Stroudsburg. And St. Vincent, I believe, is home again. Do they have 3 straight home games?
Yeah, that's what I saw.
This season?
Some home
I was
cooking.
talking with Lorenzo, our colleague who runs camera and does some other things for us. And of course, he played at St. Vincent, and he mentioned that there was 3. Yeah, because it's homecoming this weekend, he said. So it's very strange to see that.
Hey, if you can get 3 consecutive home games to open a season, you feel like you got to at least get one victory, right?
Got to get one. Yeah.
They will have to certainly take care of business. Griffin's looking to get their first W as well. That's all the scores from week 2. But now let's look at the top performers. And if you're unfamiliar, we highlight the top passer, rusher, and receiver across the entire WPIAL, and then the several next in Westmoreland County. We'll start with the quarterbacks. The top passer, it's a familiar name if you follow the WPIAL, Josh Jenkins of Stowe Rocks, the Vikings quarterback. He was just 12 of 24, 50%, but those 12 completions spanned 323 yards.
Hold on,
Behind
Sean. I'm
him-
doing a calculation. 26.9 yards per pass completion right there, buddy. That was right out of my head.
You did that in mental math.
I did, yes.
That's impressive. It was also impressive what Jake Phillips did once again. We talked to Jack about him, and 14 of 21, 261 yards for the Spartan senior. That was the top mark in Westmoreland County. Tristan Tavares of Norwin, as he comes out and gets a victory, 8 of 20 for 168. That 168 tied Blake Revore of Derry area as he goes 11 of 25. Colt Chatfield of Mount Pleasant area had a nice performance. Needed just 6 completions to get 167 yards. And then Caden Kiefer of Southmoreland, 10 of 15 for 154. The top rusher in the WPIAL, you will see, or I guess we will say, you will hear or read about this name quite a bit over the next 4 years. It is David Davis of Amani Christian, 293 yards on the ground. Already has a Penn State offer. Big things on the horizon for the Amani Christian freshman. Zach Bazuska of Franklin Regional, 194 yards to lead all of the Westmoreland rushers. And then a couple of Ligonier Valley Rams put up 160-plus yards. 165 for John Jablanovsky and Hayden Siraki, former quarterback. He's done just great at running back. He has 160 yards on the ground. Lane Golkowski of Mount Pleasant area, 151. And his teammate Robbie Labuda, 148 for the Vikings. Lastly, top receivers. It is Wayne Love of Deer Lakes, 4 receptions, 184 yards to pace the entire WPIAL. And a quartet of Westmoreland County players go 100 yards or more. Ian Tufts of Hempfield area leads the way. Jack talked about him, 7 for 137. Tyler Reese shifting from quarterback to receiver, 4 catches for 133. Daniel Tarabrella of Penn Trafford, 3 for 106. And Chase Rakonen of Bell Vernon area had 3 grabs for 100 yards. That does it for the top performers. We'll take a break. When we come back, you want to stick around. It is the always popular plays of the week. It is jam-packed. We've got 6 plays coming up. You'll want to catch all of those. That'll be when we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Nunzio's Italian Restaurants would like to express our sincere thanks to all of our loyal customers for their continued support dating back to our beginning in 1977. Since then, we've grown from our original location in Jeanette. We then added Monroeville in 1997 and expanded even further as we moved into the Arnold Palmer Regional Airport in Latrobe in 2004. It is our pleasure to provide our customers with the very best experience. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Right now at Smale Kia, take $500 off any in-stock or incoming 2023 Kia Soul or Forte, or lease a 2023 Kia Forte LXS for just $295 a month. A fair price all the time. At Smale Kia, you never have to worry about the ugly 3. No sly market adjustments, no creepy addendum, no fancy surcharges. Avoid the ugly 3 and be free. Shop Smale Kia, where you never pay more than MSRP.
Westmoreland County's broadcast home for high school sports, the Westmoreland Sports Network.
As we continue here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron, we thank Jack Ridenauer, our great guest, for stopping in. And he's a busy man as well, so we appreciate any time that he can give. And he's slowly but surely becoming the voice of the Hempfield area Spartans. So, maybe when he signed up for the job, he didn't think he'd be calling a lot of wins, but man, they have turned things around. So congratulations to them. And
Eddie Diorio would be proud, Sean.
Yes. Well, he got to see, who was it, Nathan Roby put up an unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was his
He
boy,
had that incredible senior season.
That was his boy.
Eddie is still talking about that to this day. Spartans turning those games now into victories, at least so far. Well, we're going to hear from them in this next segment, but let's build up the anticipation because it is everyone's favorite time of the week. It is now time for Plays of the Week. And we will begin with Penn Trafford as the Warriors were dominant against Woodland Hills, punctuated by the final play of the first half as nasty Nolan Morasti produced a pick six to put PT up 42-7 at the break. Myself, Sean Meyers, and the one and only Mark Katarski captioned the video. Third and 3. This one just heaved up. It is intercepted, and this could go back the other way. And Morasti's going to take it 75 yards on a pick six.
They brought some pressure, unfazed. Walter got backwards off balance. Watch this. That's bad news when you're throwing it off your heels in a situation. Everybody's going to the end zone, and Morasti kicking it up. Look at him running.
What do you think there? Maybe 78 yards, 79 yards?
Something in that vicinity. And
how about Penn Trafford scoring twice with triple zeros on the clock? They score on the final play of the first quarter. They score here on a 78-yard pick six on the final play of the first half.
Our boy, Sean, Dan Miller's boy, Nasty Morasti with a pick six. How about his dad was standing beside us pretty much the entire game. He usually is up in the press box. He's a principal at one of the elementary schools in McCullough at Penn Trafford. And I look over at him and just stone-faced. I'm sure he was excited, but one of those dads is like, all right, it's expected. And I said, why did they throw to that Morasti kid? And he just started laughing. But he's certainly a big part of this PT team, especially with Jake Otto's, health kind of in question right now.
Game time decision is the latest that I heard on Otto.
Okay, all right. Well, that's a good thing. It's like we were worried about him like we are TJ Watt. So I think Watt's going to be out a little longer, hopefully, than Jake.
Yeah, but nonetheless, they certainly showed that they have other players who can step up in a big, big way. We'll continue Plays of the Week with Norwin, and it's called a Hail Mary because it takes a bit of a prayer. But for Jackson Pons, he answered that prayer for the Knights on the final play of the first half. He caught a heave from Tristan Tavares to tie the score against Fox Chapel heading into the locker room. Dave Franzak, who is very excited about this play, and Tim McCabe detailed.
There's the Hail Mary set up on the right, one guy to the left. Pass protection should not be a problem.
And rolling right. And unfortunately, Tim, it is a problem. Tavares gets it to the end zone. Jump ball. Touchdown, Norwin! Jackson Pons. Touchdown. Talk about the touch when you need it, Tim.
Pons comes up with it. He threw it, I think, as far as he could.
Listen to this crowd, Tim.
In the corner of the end zone to come down with that ball. Castle in for the extra point and the lead.
Great to see Jackson Pons coming up with a huge catch there, man. He's been moved around so much. We saw him play some quarterback, and I guess the last couple of games he's been at receiver for the most part. So great to see him make that play. And Dave Franzak, he was all over it. I said earlier, he texted me immediately. He's like, hey, you're going to want to check and see what happened at the end of the half, and I want to be on Plays of the Week this week. So here you are, Franny.
Sometimes teams put their best athlete at quarterback, but the way that he's catching the ball, Jackson Pons, I think, is assuring that he's going to stay at receiver for the foreseeable future. Terrific, terrific catch. Well deserving of a spot on Plays of the Week. We continue with Southmoreland. The Scotties, they got creative early in their win against Derry area as Caden Matthews took a handoff. He then threw it to Wyatt Richter in the end zone to stake Southmoreland to the first quarter advantage, as called by John Flickinger and Bob Lisinski.
Hoffer is split all the way to the far side of the field, tight end right, 2 setbacks in the backfield, along with Caden Matthews, a freshman who's into the lineup. And Matthews has it. He can throw it. He's a backup quarterback, and he throws it into the end zone, and it's caught for the touchdown by Wyatt Richter. So they brought the freshman quarterback into the game, and they used him as just that, a quarterback. And Matthews puts it into the hands of Richter for the score. All he had to do was get it out there. Richter was wide open. He beat Robinson on the play badly. And that's a touchdown, and it's 6-0. Scotties.
The offensive genius that is Tim Bukowski. It's his background. He's an offensive guy. Dialed up something to maybe pulling over on Micah Roan's squad. So, yeah, you have a talented quarterback and a talented receiver, the Keffer guys. You think they're going to be involved instead? You call on your backup quarterback to take the handoff. So something that every coach is now going to have to prepare for as they go against the Scotties going forward. So well-deserved first victory again for Coach Bukowski. We continue Plays of the Week in that same game. We'll talk about Derry area as the Trojans, well, they've remained winless, but their offensive contributed, and it gave reasons for optimism as a sophomore connection, Blake Revore, the quarterback, and receiver Damari Robinson hooked up on a long touchdown in the fourth to put them within 2 scores, as detailed once again by John and Bob.
Vikings are going to be tough this year. I mean, I know they had a tough loss earlier as Damari in space. And there goes Damari accelerating inside the 30, the 20, the 10, and a Trojan touchdown. You get this young man in space and watch him go. And he did right there, and the Trojans are on the board again.
43 yards to Robinson. Nice run there, nice cut. Like you said, John, you get him out there in the open, and he sure has the speed to make it happen, and he sure did there to bring the Trojans back within 2 touchdowns. There you're seeing replay. Nice move there at the end.
And he woke the fire company up out there. They were sleeping in those trucks, and now they're blaring their sirens here on Salute Your Heroes Night. Nice play there.
We went into the season thinking that it was going to be Ahmad Ward that was going to have to do it all on offense, but it looks like that the quarterback and receivers have stepped up a little bit for the Trojans the last couple of weeks. Blake Revore, Damari Robinson. So good signs offensively for the Trojans as they continue to try to get back more competitive.
Well, and what's really exciting is, these guys are younger guys talking about Damari Robinson, Ahmad Ward. I know he was banged up a little bit in the game. Couldn't find any traction in that second half because of it, but those are both underclassmen, and so that's good when you're trying to build up this program. Good to see some of the young guys really contributing in that game, even though it was a loss.
Yeah, I don't think the Trojans had much luck at all through the air last year, so they've already made great strides in that regard. Well, you could say the same about our next team, Hempfield area, as the Spartans ultimately won convincingly, but it was a battle early against Greater Latrobe. They created some separation, though, in the second quarter. It was Ian Tufts hauled in a Jake Phillips pass to put them ahead 28-14, with Jack Ridenauer and Roger Downs painting that picture.
And 2 receivers to either side of Phillips. 4:18 to play in the second. Phillips looking towards his left, steps up in the pocket, throws, and it's caught! Touchdown, Spartans! Ian Tufts reels it in, and another score put on the board for Hempfield.
Nice job with the feet with Ian Tufts near the back of the end zone. Great concentration. Very, very good coverage by the Wildcat defender. However, good catch, good throw, good defense results in a touchdown for the Spartans.
Beautiful throw by Jake Phillips, able to thread the needle. He did pick up his first interception of the season earlier in this game, but he has clearly redeemed himself since.
Well, we heard from Jack before. He said Ian Tufts, that's a guy who needs more recognition. He's certainly going to get it. He continues to put up big numbers all season long. One of the top receivers again this week. And, it's a pick your poison when you're trying to defend that Spartans team now.
Yeah, and Phillips can run a little bit too, don't forget. So, you're worrying about Geno Caesar, you're worrying about Ian Tufts, Eli Benikonski. Really, they do have some weapons on there. And of course, they give the diplomatic answer. You talk to Phillips, talk to Caesar. They want to start it with the guys up front, the offensive line. So everything's clicking right now for Hempfield. We'll see if that continues this week against a really good Shaler team.
And we conclude plays of the week. Well, we had to conclude it with this next announcer. Franklin Regional, and dubbed Mr. Electricity by Jonathan Whaley. Receiver Aiden Hudock, he shocked Connellsville less than a minute into the game. His long reception from Roman Sarnic, who we're going to hear from in a bit, put the Panthers ahead in the opening minute, as called by the one and only JW.
Now from the shotgun, dropping back, pump fake, now looking, going down the sideline. He's got a man open. Is it there? Yes, it's caught. He's down the 20 to the 10, 5. Mr. Electricity shows what he's all about. If on cue, you must have listened to the broadcast on his headset. That'll be like a 65-yard scoring play. That same play was the first pass of the game last week. They didn't convert. Aiden was open. A Roman overthrew him. That time he didn't. He dropped it right in the bucket. And Mr. Electricity does what he does best. Run wild. 6-0 in favor of the Panthers.
Mr. Electricity, that is what's the best JW nickname that you remember?
Oh,
Commissioner always stands out to me, Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, Commissioner Gordon was the one. The Great Dane Brown, former Franklin Regional running back. Oh man, there were a couple. You know what he does the best is like Seton Hill women's volleyball. There were a few there too, and that off the top of my head I can't think. But yeah, Great Dane was a good one for Franklin Regional.
Where does Mr. Electricity rank?
I don't know. That's pretty good. That's pretty. And you know what? He doesn't reuse things either. Like he comes up with something new. I think for his favorite players for sure.
Well, we're going to have puns for a long, long time with that, Mr. Electricity. So I think that's a fitting way to wrap up this week's installment of Plays of the Week. We'll take a break. When we come back, I had the opportunity to talk to Benny Hoffer, head coach of the Yough Cougars, as he comes off his first head coaching victory. Coach Hoffer coming up next. And a little bit later, we're going to hear from Roman Sarnic of Franklin Regional. He's our player of the week. We'll look ahead at the Week 3 preview as well. That's as we roll along right here each and every Wednesday at 7 p.m. It's Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Bourbon Sports Medicine, Western Pennsylvania's #1 physical therapy practice, is now in Greensburg, voted by Trib Live readers as the best of the best. Our new Greensburg clinic provides orthopedic, concussion, lymphedema, and pelvic health therapy. Conveniently located at 133 Donahoe Road, right next to Best Buy. East Suburban Sports Medicine, the best care anywhere, hands down. Call 412-856-8060 and schedule an appointment today.
Now is the time to save at Sendell Subaru in Greensburg. We've got inventory on the lot and more on the way. Forester, Outback, Ascent, Legacy, and more. Get a great deal on a new 2022 Subaru. Check out SendellSubaru.com today. Looking to turn your current vehicle into cash? Sendell pays top dollar. Get your best deal at Sendell Subaru, Route 30 Greensburg, SendellSubaru.com. We would love to meet you.
Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. I'm Sean Meyers, joined by the first-year head coach of the Yough Cougars, Benny Hoffer, fresh off of his first head coaching victory this past week, 14-0 against Charleroi. And Benny, the first question is, what was that feeling like for you personally after you got your first career head coaching win?
Thanks for having me, Sean. It was really, really cool. The student section was all chanting for us, and defense played really well with a shutout. It was really exciting. We just did a couple things at the end with a couple of penalties I did not like, but I mean, it was so exciting to get the first win and hopefully first of many there at Cougar Mountain for me.
What did the players maybe do for you after the game had ended? Was there a lot of congratulations that went around?
There was actually a student section kind of lined up and they started chanting my name. So that was pretty neat. And then I walked through them and gave them high fives and stuff. So that was pretty cool. And the kids were just all excited. They sang the All Mater and everything. It was a really touching moment and a special night up there.
So let's rewind a little bit prior to that, because you had 2 losses before your first victory. First game of the season was a home one, though. I would imagine that walking out onto that field to start the game That was also something significant. Did it hit you any differently when you first walked out there officially as the head coach for your first game, and it was happened to be a home game on Cougar Mountain?
Yeah, it definitely was a different feeling. I was so used to being a player there, and then you go out there with the caps and stuff and start talking to the refs, and a little different feel. And then South Allegheny goes backwards on the first drive. It was 4th and 46, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is going to be great. But obviously we didn't get the better of them. But it was a great experience, and I've learned from it, and I will continue to learn in the future.
I know that you were pretty happy with the defense. Offense has been a little bit of a struggle. You have just 4 touchdowns this season. What have you liked in particular on the defensive side of the football through 3 contests?
My defense coordinator, Joey Corper, he played with me. He does a really good job. He's very fierce and very physical as a person, and as a player, he was the same thing. And he's bringing that mantra and that mindset to the kids and just teaching physicality, okay, how to be hit and then getting to the ball, pursuit and stuff like that. Joey does a great job of it. And obviously I kept telling the kids that they can't score. Obviously they can't win. And they bought into that. And it showed on Friday night.
Yeah, you get the shutout, and you got a couple of touchdowns as well. And they've all been by the same player. Gavin Roebuck has had a terrific start to your season. And he's done so by sort of adapting midstream to a couple of different spots. He was the quarterback primarily a year ago. You wanted to maybe move him to different positions this year. And it only took about a game before he went back to quarterback. But I know that he is a dual threat. As I said, he has all 4 of your touchdowns. And he just seems like a super intelligent and mature young man. What do you like most about him?
He always gets us in the right place. So if I have a couple options of the play, Gavin can always know which way to run it. He's very hard to take down. He's a very, very hard runner. And JJ and Raiden are also running the ball very well, and they're blocking. They're opening up some holes for him, but his individual effort, I mean, he has 300 yards on the ground already, 4 touchdowns. I mean, he's being a great leader, great captain. Hopefully we get somebody else in the end zone this week and we start spreading the wealth around a little bit.
Well, you mentioned the name Raiden. He started as your quarterback and now has shifted to running back. How has he handled that transition? And do you still see maybe him as a long-term solution at that position?
He's embracing it. He really loves to hit. He loves running the ball north and south. Depends on if my freshman quarterback can step up this offseason to see if Raiden would have to go back to quarterback or stay at running back. But for this year, Raiden's loving running back. He gets the ball still. He loves contact and loves hitting people, so he can open up some holes for Gavin and JJ along the way.
Let's maybe look a little bit bigger picture for Yough. So you come back to your alma mater. You obviously had a great career there. You were the all-time leading rusher until a guy named Dustin Schoaf came along and broke that record. But when you think of Yough football over the past handful of years, it has been a struggle. So when you took this job, what did you have in terms of goals short-term and then long-term as well?
The short term, I told the kids this week, is this could be the first 2-game winning streak that Yough football's had in about 5 or 6 years. I know it doesn't sound very impressive to a lot of people, but it's a step in the right direction for the program. We could be 1-0 in conference, which is a very good short-term goal for the team. With Derry coming up, Derry's a very tough team. We can't take anything for granted, obviously. We got to keep playing. Long-term, obviously, would be the win a conference. And it's been 13, 14 years since I was a senior that we won one. That would be my long-term goal, but I know that's not going to happen overnight. We got to get people in the weight room, get people buying into the program, and I believe it can happen, and I know it can happen at Yough.
I interview a lot of coaches, and usually new coaches talk about how they have to change the culture. Now, obviously, ideally, if you take over a successful program, you just keep that in place. But for a Cougars team that you mentioned, it's been a long, long time since they've had some winning tradition. You do kind of have to change the culture. So it's easy to say that, probably a lot harder to accomplish that. What are some of maybe the specific steps that you have to take, and how long does something like that typically last?
I mean, obviously it helps with the midgets. I communicate with my midget coach very well for the feeder program. Middle school, I have about 28 kids out, which is improving from last year. Just changing their mindset is a big thing. And like even last week, we were up 14-0 against Charleroi, and we had the ball and it's 3rd and 7. We get a first down, but we get a 15-yard personal foul. They got to turn it on how to win. I mean, most of these kids only won 4 games of football in 4 years. You know what I mean? So they're just not used to it. And obviously in the weight room can't be overstated in the off season. People got to be there, buy in. And I think obviously as winning occurs, it's easier to get people out for a winner. You know what I mean? So I think as we win, I think more numbers will happen.
talking to Benny Hoffer, first-year head coach for the Cougars here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Well, you mentioned back to your playing days, and it's not that long ago, but we're now beyond a decade. When you think back, do you maybe consider what you really enjoyed and want to make sure your players experience that same thing? And do you also look at it like, well, this wasn't a great experience. I want to make sure that I don't have my guys now in that same position. Are you able to reflect upon your personal experiences and apply it to coaching?
I'm really a big guy on having fun during the game, just having fun. You make a mistake, don't think about it. Football's great. You got the next play to make up for it. That's really what I preach at practice is let's have fun. And obviously the kids know that I had success there. So it's pretty easy once I talk that they're all ears. Like Gavin was running the ball really well on last week. And I said, Gavin, I really appreciate that from doing it in the past. And it's just, I'm all about having fun. I know that there's a thing you want to win, but these kids, they're kids. Let's have fun out there and see if we can get a couple dubs.
Well, to expand upon that, you talk about having fun. Is there anything unique or interesting that you've sort of brought, a tradition you're trying to build, or maybe some little nuances that you've added to this team to try to, lighten the mood, make it more enjoyable, maybe allow them to kind of do something other than just focus on wins and losses?
We're going to do this thing on Thursdays after the walkthrough. It's called skill, the kids call it. They throw a football and try to hit the goalpost. So maybe that'll get their minds off of the game a little bit after we're done game planning for Derry, and just bring a little bit more fun to it and get more kids involved is mainly what I want to do. I want to get everyone involved. We had a nice student section, nice crowd Friday, and I'm hoping that we can get more people up there on Cougar Mountain.
Now, do you have your linemen also throwing the footballs, trying to hit the goalposts?
Linemen, I'm going to do what I did in college. I think I'm going to have Sarver punt the ball and see if they drop the punts. That's always a good one. We always did that in college. Is we punted and the linemen had to try to catch them.
I just did a Q&A feature with Scotty Hausman, former Yough Cougar and a massive offensive lineman now at Albany. And I was reading a story and researching that I guess during maybe a 7-on-7, he actually took some snaps at quarterback back in his day, which I can only imagine seeing him lining up and throwing the football around the arm. But he's a good baseball player, so maybe he would be able to show off the arm a little bit. Talking about a guy like that, we mentioned Dustin Schoaf. How important is it for you to get some of the former Yough Cougars, especially the ones who did go on to have success, to come back every now and then if possible, embrace this program and help maybe add to the credibility that you're trying to bring to it?
Yeah, actually, you mentioned Scotty. I played with his older brother, and Scotty's been texting me every game, wishing me good luck, and I've wished him good luck. He said Baylor was tough, obviously, but he wishes me good luck every week, tells me to keep the kids in the right direction. You mentioned Schoaf. He was there in the offseason a couple times, asking how the program's doing and everything, and a couple players from my brother, Sedno and Wilson, all them, they're all interested to see how we're doing. Like, they want us to succeed, and that definitely helps whenever you bring back people that have had success in the program, and the kids realize, oh, he can go there, I can go D1 if I work hard, and I'm good enough.
Let's focus a little bit on Derry area. So you're playing a Westmoreland County opponent in the Trojans. You mentioned is now a conference matchup, and these are two teams previously that have been in 3A, have now dropped down. When you look at them, they also have a new coach in Mike Arone. What stands out about Derry area in particular?
Oh, well coached, a lot better than last year. I mean, the guy's done a great job, in my opinion. And tough runner, 22 is a tough runner. Number 11 is good. Quarterback can throw the ball. Very, very big team. I think his number 63. He's huge. He's about 6'4", 330. They're very big. They're very physical, and they're very, very well coached and organized. A lot different than obviously whenever I played them last year against East Allegheny. It's going to be a battle, and we just have to come out and execute the game plan, which I hope our kids do well.
And so you mentioned the game plan. What are the biggest keys to have success and get that victory?
I mean, cliche, don't turn the ball over, play good field position. We did a really good job in the kicking game last week. Special teams has played a good factor. We downed a punt at the 1 and then stopped Shaw where they had to punt it. We got a 20, 30-yard field. That would be huge. And we got to tackle. 22 runs hard. Got to tackle them, got to bring them down, got to get people to the ball. Everyone come to the ball. And defense plays like that again. I like our chances up there on Friday.
Final thing, obviously you played at Yough and had success, and now you come back and you're coaching at your alma mater. What makes Yough so special to you?
It's just a different feel whenever I walk on the stadium up at Cougar Mountain. I bleed orange and green, you know what I mean? It's my home. It's where I grew up. It's where I lived for 27 years. It's special to me in that kind of way that a lot of people it's not to, that just see scores and see Yough go downhill. And I'm really, really taking pride in turning this program around. And I know we will get to the point that we can get it turned around, buddy.
Well, Benny, congratulations on win number 1. Hopefully it's the first of many, many throughout your coaching career at Yough.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Sean.
All right. Benny Hoffer, first-year head coach of the Cougars. We'll take a break and continue right after this on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Your next golf adventure awaits at Manor Valley Golf Course in Export. Manor Valley offers 18 scenic holes over gentle sloping fairways and the purest putting surfaces around. Manor Valley Golf Course in Export is the perfect place to host your next golf outing, banquet party, or shower. Manor Valley also offers league play and great membership rates. Tee times available. Call 724-744-4242. Visit ManorValleyGC.com.
We continue here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean and Dan talking high school football across Westmoreland County. And we want to thank Benny Hoffer, first-year head coach for the Cougars. And you could tell hearing how much it means to him to be at Yough. And I know that having pride in a school, that means a lot when you're trying to turn a program around. And I think he is fully invested in his job this year and for many, many years to come.
I agree with you 100%, Sean. And I think part of how you turn around a football program, it's not just what you do on the field. I mean, you have to create that spark. You have to create the student section coming out, the community coming out. And I think that atmosphere allows you to get more kids out in the long run. More kids want to play football. I think that's where you have to start. It's not just about X's and O's. And I think he has a really good understanding of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
He said he was high-fiving the student section, man. That's awesome. They were getting pumped up, I'm sure.
Yes.
Seeing Coach Hoffer come through.
We are rooting for him. He's a good dude.
Good guy, yeah.
It's long overdue for Yough, right? We talk about Burrell getting off to this good start. We talk about Hempfield area. You never know. Maybe Yough finds a rhythm this season, or maybe they start 3-0 next season, and they're the talk of Westmoreland County. So you got to keep pounding away if you're Coach Hoffer. Well, that was our coach interview. We also have a player interview upcoming with Roman Sarnic of Franklin Regional. And really, this was a week where I thought we could have put 15 names up there for deserving candidates. Ultimately, we had to narrow it down, and he was the most deserving. And Flick, it was a well accounted for public in terms of the voting this week. They came out in full force to cast their votes.
Yeah, no kidding. It may have been historic. We had over 6,000 votes, and it was close. Roman Sarnic beats out Ian Tufts. Jackson Pons and Devin Beatty also handled themselves well in terms of the voting. Cody Rubrecht and Robbie Labuda. But Roman, I mean, we talked to him before the season. He was really excited to see what the offense could do this year. And I know it was against a Connellsville team that's struggling. But hey, I mean, you beat the teams that are in front of you, and you do it convincingly. And that's what Franklin Regional did last week against Sarnic. 2 touchdowns on the through the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground. He also made 3 sacks on defense. Don't forget about that either. So what a tremendous performance by him. But we mentioned, Ian Tufts' game, 7 catches, 137 yards, and a touchdown, plus made an interception and recovered a fumble on defense. We talked about Jackson Pons with that Hail Mary catch. He had 2 touchdowns in the game. Devin Beatty, 169 rushing yards on 23 carries, 2 touchdowns. I mean, there were so many deserving players this week. Mentioned Cody Rubrecht with the touchdown through the air and 2 touchdowns on the ground, and Robbie Labuda, who's been nominated, I think, every week. But Cody, I think, has been too. But Robbie, 17 carries, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns, plus those extra points. I don't think he's missed one. I'm knocking on wood, by the way.
He's money.
We'll make sure he doesn't do it this time. I promise I am. If he does miss one this week, I'll do something for Mount Pleasant.
Blame TJ DeStefano.
Yeah, we'll blame TJ. That's fine. But yeah, a great week for him too. And so congratulations to everyone that was nominated. But Roman Sarnic is able to grab the victory this week. And I just want to say, we've had a great relationship with the Franklin Regional Football Boosters over the years. His mother is heavily involved, in the boosters. So she was out there sharing the Facebook post and the tweet and everything to get Roman Player of the Week this week. So congratulations to him and everybody that was nominated.
And it had to take that concerted effort to snap the streak of Hempfield area Spartans winning Player of the Week. We almost made it 3 for 3 here in 2022.
It was very close, very close. I'm sure Ian Tufts will be up for a nomination again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Well, without any further ado, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we will hear from our Player of the Week, Roman Sarnic of Franklin Regional. And then after that, a look ahead, the Week 3 preview with all of the games across Westmoreland County. Don't go anywhere as we'll continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Seton Hill University is more than academics. It's an experience. It's student clubs, camaraderie, leadership opportunities, individualized guidance from faculty, and much more. Here, you'll join a community dedicated to transforming the world. With an above-average career placement rate and career services for life, Seton Hill University will support you far beyond graduation day. Start your Seton Hill experience by scheduling a campus visit at setonhill.edu/visit.
The Collision Shop by Jason Mignone is your one-stop shop for all things auto body repair. Our experienced technicians and state-of-the-art facilities have you covered on both passenger and heavy-duty vehicle repairs, including scratches, scrapes, and dents, free estimates, body repairs, welding, refinishing, glass replacement, and more. Our all-new alignment and calibration shop has the tooling, equipment, and staffing to ensure top-quality alignment and calibration adjustments for your vehicle. Our friendly office staff is more than happy to assist you through every step of your vehicle's repair process. Visit the Collision Shop by Jason for our complete list of services.
And we welcome you back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. It is now time to talk with our Week 2 Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week. He is Roman Sarnic from the Franklin Regional Panthers. Roman threw for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns, plus ran for 100 yards, 2 scores, and made 3 sacks on defense in the Panthers' victory against Connellsville last week. Roman, thank you so much for taking some time with us today.
No problem.
Roman, how important was it to bounce back against Connellsville after such a heartbreaking loss to Latrobe? You guys came back, you went into overtime, you scored first. Unfortunately, the Wildcats ended up winning, but what was it like to bounce back last week in a big way against the Falcons?
It felt really good to bounce back because the way we played against Latrobe was not how we should have played. I think we should have won that game a lot better than we lost, and I don't think it should have been close because we played really bad in the first half. And then to come out against Connellsville and score first play, it really made our connections better, and now our chemistry is building way more.
Was there any adjustments that you guys made strategically after the loss to Latrobe going into that Connellsville game, or was it just we just have to play better in the first half?
Not really. We just had to play better. It just really came down to that.
Well, you mentioned playing better early, and you certainly did so against Connellsville. Less than a minute into the game, you hit Aiden Hudock for a long touchdown pass. So can you kind of take us through that play and just how important was it, again, to get off to such a great start?
Well, the thing is, that wasn't even supposed to be the play. Me and Coach Getty kind of changed that maybe 30 seconds before I went out. We were supposed to run the ball inside, and then he said, "Do you want to throw it deep?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then we did a little double move with Aiden, and it worked.
Do you guys do a lot of scripted plays? Is that kind of what that was before the game, and you kind of went off script for the first one?
Yeah, we kind of have a play, a couple plays in the beginning of the game we like to run and have sets so we can work on them in practice. But after Coach Getty saw what they were doing, he kind of wanted to change it a little bit.
You mentioned Aiden Hudock really pulled off that double move very well, and you hit him. What makes him such a special player and the connection you guys have with one another?
Me and Aiden have been playing since we were 5 years old. I think that chemistry is built a lot all the way through. I've been throwing him the ball since we were 8. And the special thing about Aiden, he's super fast. He's definitely one of the strongest wide receivers in the Whippeal, and he works very hard.
So aside from that touchdown pass, you guys obviously did other good things on offense. What do you think the key was to your success offensively as a whole last week?
We were way more physical, and our mindset was there. like we had way less like mental mistakes. Because I think our physicality was there last week. It was just all mental.
You've played 2 games now, again, at a tough loss to Latrobe, big victory over Connellsville. How would you evaluate your offense, right now in terms of how you're playing?
Our offense right now, I mean, we put up 40 points. So I think we're doing pretty good. And we put up 36 points in the second half against Latrobe. So I think as soon as we get it rolling, I think we'll be kind of hard to stop.
Is there anything specific that kind of makes you feel like you got that confidence rolling into Gateway this week?
I mean, anything specific?
Yeah, like anything specific offensively, what you guys are doing specifically well.
Not really. I mean, I think we're just playing way better as a team. I think we came together a lot more in these couple of weeks.
You split time at quarterback last year, Roman, but you're full-time this year. So in what areas have you specifically improved on, do you think, from your junior season to now your senior season?
I think everything. Like reading the field better, knowing the playbook better. I'm stronger, I'm faster. My mindset's there way more. Like I didn't really have a drive to play quarterback last year, but this year I was all in on it.
How about on defense? Everybody, if you're a quarterback, everybody wants to talk about the way you play on offense, but you had 3 sacks last week. What's your role on defense and how much do you enjoy it?
I enjoy defense a lot. I probably enjoy it more than offense just because I like hitting people a lot more. And my role in defense is I'm a DN, so I kind of just not let anyone outside and try and get that quarterback.
Now, you're also a wrestler for our pal Matt Levy at Franklin Regional. Do you know what you'd like to do in college if you want to play anything?
I would more rather play football than wrestle because I like football way more than wrestling. Like I'm still iffy if I want to wrestle this year or not.
Okay. So you still have some options. You're still kind of evaluating what you'd like to do in terms of where you'd like to go and that type of thing.
Yeah, as of right now, I don't have any offers, but I would like to get someone see if I can play.
Yeah, keep playing the way you are. You certainly will get those your senior year. Now, let's turn our attention to Friday, if we could, Roman. You guys face Gateway at home. What's the excitement level like knowing what type of program they are and what type of program you guys are trying to become again? And also knowing, there's that little rivalry there with not much distance between the 2 schools.
The excitement's there because last year we kind of got blown out, and I've been wanting to play them again a lot. And this is our first test, really. I think because they're a really good powerhouse team, best team in 5A right now, and I think we can shock a lot of people because no one gives us a chance, really.
Can you give us a scouting report in from your perspective on Gateway, what you kind of see, what they like to do?
I mean, on offense, they kind of like to run the speed option and stuff, and we're kind of not letting them get outside much. We're kind of game planning for their outside zones and the little screens and stuff.
And how about from Gateway's defensive perspective? What do you guys have to do on offense to have success on Friday?
Well, first off, their defensive line is really good. So I think that's one spot where our offensive line needs to pick up a lot. And I think they really can because we have some nice size on the offense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, those guys have been doing a really nice job so far. Roman, this was great, man. I really appreciate the time. I know you have a senior dinner tonight that you have to get to. Where did that tradition start? Or I should say, when did that tradition start? Is that something that's been happening for a long time at Franklin Regional?
Yeah, it's been happening before I came up to high school. Every week, a new senior hosts a dinner after Wednesday practice just to get together.
What are you guys eating tonight?
Tonight, we're not going to a player's house. We're in the Bonchivo. It's something different.
Okay. Very good. Well, enjoy it. Again, thank you so much, man. Congratulations. And we'll talk to you again down the line. All right.
Appreciate it.
That is Roman Sarnic, the Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week. On week 2, of course, he is from the Franklin Regional Panthers, who take on Gateway. We'll preview that game and many other games coming up on Westmoreland on the Gridiron right after these messages.
Have you or someone you know committed to play a sport at the next level? Let us know by emailing info@westmorelandsports.com so we can add you to our WSN College Commitment page. Our unique page features a list of current Westmoreland County student athletes that have made a verbal or written commitment to play a sport in college. No matter what sport at what level, our College Commitment page has you covered. Check it out next time you visit westmorelandsports.com.
Stadium lights are going out. The bleachers are empty. The reason? No officials. When fans are disrespectful to the calls on the field and those who make them, it is a hard position to fill. Show your support for your PIAA officials by demonstrating respect. Let's all work together so the game is great for everyone.
And we continue here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. A big shout out to our player of the week, Roman Sarnic of Franklin Regional, for taking the time to talk to Dan Flickinger. I guess everyone can make some time to talk to you, though, right?
Just cut out a little piece of your day.
Yeah.
And talk to me. We try to have a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah. Well, I guess as much fun as anyone can have.
At least I try to have fun. I don't know. The kids are probably like, whatever, let's just get this over with.
Yeah. I understand that feeling. All right, let's take a look at the week 3 preview with all of the games across Westmoreland County. And Westmoreland Sports is going to be busy this Friday. We've got a jam-packed schedule. So we'll begin with all the games that we'll be bringing to you on audio and video. Man, this is going to be a good one. It's going to be a fun one. Second straight year, Penn Trafford will head to the beach. They'll be playing at Bell Vernon area and Weir Stadium on that golden turf. That is a 7 o'clock start, a video broadcast. PT Bell Vernon area last year went in favor of the Leopards. John Ruane said, we looked at that film and we did a lot of stuff wrong. And he said he was outcoached by Matt Humbert. He did not hide that fact. So they have some motivation. That being said, I think Bell Vernon's going to have some motivation after losing last week. So something's got to give.
Something's got to give. No, I agree with that. I mean, Matt Humbert said after the loss to McKeesport, he really loved the way his defense played. Didn't like so much the way his offense played. And, we saw him at training camp, man. I mean, the guy's motor never stops, particularly with the offensive side of the ball. So I have a feeling those guys are going to be ready to go offensively this week. So Penn Trafford's going to have a challenge in that way. But I also feel like, as you mentioned, Sean, Penn Trafford has something to prove after they lost to McKeesport a couple of weeks ago. I think they did do a great job of proving themselves last week, but they got to continue that against a team they lost to last year. So, heck, a lot of storylines coming into this game.
Yeah, and Penn Trafford doesn't have Carter Green and Cade Iacomelli, but they'll be very happy to know that the Leopards don't have Devin Whitlock, who went for like 200-some yards on the ground against them last year in Bell Vernon's victory. Another game we'll have a video broadcast of. This is a conference game. Yes, there's a decent number of teams that open conference play this week. Gateway at Franklin Regional. And so this is a real test for the Panthers. A lot of people think Gateway might be the best team in 5A. The Gators have been a little slow out of the gate. They narrowly won their most recent game against North Hills. They struggled, but ultimately pulled away against Woodland Hills. Still, Gateway is a legitimate opponent, and Franklin Regional will have to be at its best. We'll see if Roman Sarnic and crew can do it in that rivalry matchup.
And last year, Sean, Franklin played them decently tough. So we'll see if they can continue that playing at home.
Another Westmoreland County matchup will take place on Cougar Mountain. Derry area heads to Yough. We'll have a video broadcast of that one as well. And we mentioned Coach Hoffer coming off of that first victory. He mentioned it in my interview with him that he knows Derry area is much, much improved from a year ago, and they're expecting it to be a real challenge. I don't know. When you look at this one, it to me feels like it could be a pickup. So I'll be very curious to see how it turns out on Friday. Well, it's going to be a special night at Jeanette and McKee Stadium, and we'll have a video broadcast of the Jayhawks hosting the Fraser Commodores. Fraser, the new team to the Eastern Conference in Class 1A, and they are reeling a little bit. It has been a struggle for Fraser. They got blown out by Monessen. It feels like as close as Jeanette was last week, they'll have another really good opportunity to get back in the win column. And I know everyone in attendance certainly would love to see that to cap off a special night.
Yeah, I was talking with Anthony D'Annunzio earlier this week. I mean, they're really excited for the banquet that will be on Saturday. But Anthony told me point blank, like, hey, we have a lot of guys coming back. It'd be really great if we could get a win on Friday night. And, you know, one of the questions that always comes up, especially when you're talking to guys, you know, connected like Anthony and Brent, our guys doing the broadcast, you know, what does Jeanette have to do to get back to where it was? And I'm sure those questions are asked daily. And, you know, I mean, he said, hey, they got to start generating some momentum. They got to start winning some games and that kind of thing. But I know how much he loves Tom Pallone, and he is a great guy. And I think the perfect guy to succeed Roy Hall. So I think Jeanette would do themselves a lot of good, you know, with a win this week on Alumni Weekend, or whatever, not Alumni Weekend, but certainly on a Hall of Fame weekend, which is a big deal at Jeanette.
Yeah, and one thing to pay attention to in this one, the mindset of the Jayhawks. A real heartbreaker last week, it could go one of two ways. That could be motivating and say, we're that close, let's get over the hump. Or it could be deflating, and the team maybe comes out and struggles out of the gate, not able to rebound. So we'll see what Jeanette's able to do at home on Friday. A couple other games that we'll have broadcasts of, audio broadcasts, Hempfield area at Shaler. And we mentioned that this is probably a game heading into the season that wasn't on many people's radar, but the way that the Spartans have started, Shaler's coming off of a very, very impressive victory. That's a team that's been on the rise over the last couple of years. That should be a good one, non-conference, but it does have some real meaning. This one is a conference matchup. Norwin and Plum. Remember, the Knights dropped down from 6A to 5A. Plum bumps up from 4A to 5A. They're now both in the Big East Conference. And so now we'll see how Norwin fares for the first time in conference play in 5A after they really struggled in the 6A classification. Well, we talk about a team dropping down. Greater Latrobe drops down to 4A. And you figure, okay, well, they were 5A team. They should, you know, be in pretty good shape in terms of the conference. Well, the first one might be the toughest one. They play at Thomas Jefferson. That is a Jaguars team under Coach Bill Chirpek. Year in and year out, you can pencil them in as a playoff performer and a team that probably will be a title contender. And I think a lot of people said last year, making it to the semis, this is actually the year for Thomas Jefferson to get over the hump. They return a lot, so it'll be a real test for Ron Prady. And he didn't shy away from it. He said, you know what, it's almost better to get that test right out of the gate, right? They know what they're going to have to deal with when you go against Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, and he said that's where we want to get someday. Looking at Thomas Jefferson, I'm sure all teams kind of see that in one of those programs that you want your team to emulate. And obviously, as we mentioned many times, Ron Prady, he has that winning tradition, that winning attitude coming from Penn Trafford. So, you know, he's bringing that to Latrobe. And Sean, something I didn't mention earlier, much earlier in the show, how about another kickoff return for a Latrobe player? Colin Stevens this time returning the opening kickoff 83 yards. I guess we didn't talk to Jack about that. And I'm sure Mike Brown will be looking at that, you know, coming into this week against Shaler, trying to make sure that, you know, his special teams doesn't give up another return. But it no matter who, I feel like if you're wearing black and orange and you're at Memorial Stadium, you're playing for Latrobe, you're going to return a kickoff at some point, and maybe multiple.
Wait, they play their games at Memorial Stadium?
Well, the bulletin said it said Rossi Field, I believe. Yeah, I think it's Memorial Stadium.
Let's pretend. Not my fault, by the way. But yeah, I got some grief. Okay, that's all right. Not the only time this weekend. Anyway,
you did not write the headline. Okay,
that is correct. Hampton at Kiski area. Cavaliers looking for their first win of the season. We already mentioned Burrell's going to have a tough one. They go against Sarah Catholic, the defending 2A WPIAL champions. By the way, great to see that Sarah Catholic's head coach, I guess health-wise, is doing a lot better. Remember, he went through a lot last year, was confined to a wheelchair when they won the WPIA title. But good news on that front. Glad to hear that he is improved health-wise. Ligonier Valley at Apollo Ridge, little tie-in there. Ligonier Valley's first game in returning to the WPIAL was at Apollo Ridge. They'll make the trek out to Owens Field once again, and the Rams will look to try to bounce back after a very, very rare home loss last week against Greensburg-Salem. I think I read, not counting the forfeit, it was the first time that they lost at Weller Field in like 7 years, something crazy like that. So
you got to love their fight at the end there too. I mean, they really made things interesting after Greensburg-Salem went out to a pretty big lead.
Yeah, man. Again, we mentioned it before. Hayden Siraki is a special player, making the transition. We've said that about a few guys. Quarterbacks previously, they moved to a different position, but he is just a football player. Anywhere he plays, offense, defense, special teams, he will find a way to impact the game. Monessen at Bentworth. And then a lot of other non-conference games that I think have some real interest. Mount Pleasant area at Valley. We mentioned the Valley Vikings coming off of a heartbreaker. Mount Pleasant Vikings coming off of a very impressive victory. So it'll be a Nordic battle in New Kensington between the Vikings. Deer Lakes at Greensburg Salem. First ever meeting between those schools as the Golden Lions look to make it 3 in a row. And they'll be playing at historic Offutt Field. Knock at Southmoreland. Scotties look to go back-to-back wins. Greensburg Central Catholic at Washington. Man, that is another really stiff non-conference test for the Centurions. They went against Bishop Canevin already. They played up against a 3A school in Mount Pleasant. Now they're playing one of the best 2A schools in the Little Prexies, one of the very few teams that have eclipsed 700 wins in WPIAL history. Really, really looking forward to that one. And you got to give props to Athletic Director Dan Mahoney, to Coach Marco Thomas. They're a 1A school that has gone out of their way to challenge themselves against bigger or really, really talented opponents.
100%. And you look at Washington last week, what a football game against Sarah Catholic. They lose by 1 point, 35-34. And now GCC has to face them. I mean, this should be a really good game at Washington this week.
Yeah, and the Little Prexies have a D1 recruit playing quarterback. He's not going to be a quarterback at Rutgers, but a very, very talented player. So Centurions will have their hands full in that one, certainly, against Washington. Those are the high school games, but Flick, we also will have a video broadcast Saturday morning. Yes, morning. We'll start at 11 a.m. for the pregame for a noon kickoff. East Stroudsburg comes to Greensburg as the Griffins. Seton Hill plays its first home game of 2022. I'm excited that we don't have to make a car ride that's either going to be halfway across the state or through eons of traffic down to West Virginia. So it'll be nice to head to Greensburg. And certainly for Coach Day, man, they needed to right the ship quickly. For the expectations that they had coming into this season, has to be very disappointing sitting at 2-0.
Well, getting back to what's really important, not only driving halfway across the state, but also climbing up a ladder with our equipment piece by piece. But I do want to give a shout out. I'm sure nobody from Shippensburg is watching this right now, but they were extremely hospitable and they helped us every step of the way.
How do you know Brent Grimes is not tuning in? Former NFL player. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah. And John
Kuhn.
Yeah. John Kuhn. Those guys might be tuning in, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I was kind of baffled last week with, Seton Hill on last week's show, I should say, with Seton Hill losing to Wheeling the way that they did not have a good showing against Shippensburg. Both of their touchdowns were answered by Shippensburg kick returns. One went back for a touchdown. The other went back, I think, to the Seton Hill 20. And you can't let that happen. Every time it looked like they stole some momentum, Shippensburg just got it right back. So I don't know. They're going to need to do something different, certainly, against Shippensburg. Whether that means a quarterback change, whether that means your quarterback plays better, I don't know. But they've really been struggling at that position for the last few years, really, at the quarterback position. And that's continuing this year, unfortunately.
Well, unfortunately, I cut you off. You were about to give a shout out to the people at Shippensburg, and then you got sidetracked because I started bringing up former NFL.
I did. I said, hey, they were extremely hospitable, but yeah, I mean, they helped us carry all of our equipment up.
They had their hands full.
Ladder.
That was a surreal scene during that game. We had 3 people in the stands need medical attention. Just really, it's just an
in a span of 5 minutes, while there was another player down on the field getting carted off because of a broken, we'll say, lower extremity. I don't know what exactly happened there, but it was just something that hopefully we'll never have to, live through again, but just something crazy that nobody will ever forget, including their sports information director. He was just like, I can't believe this is happening. So
yeah, you need maybe a drink or two after a day like that, whether your team wins or loses.
Honest. Yeah.
Final game in Westmoreland County will also be at the collegiate level. St. Vincent, 1:00 hosting Teal as the Bearcats look to get off the schneid. Well, Flick, we mentioned very busy Friday night, and then we'll be right back at it Saturday morning for Seton Hill. But any other things that you want to talk about with Westmoreland Sports and our great coverage of a myriad of different sports and teams all throughout the fall?
Yeah, I mean, we just want to encourage everybody, first of all, to vote for the player of the week every week. Again, we had a ton of votes this week, over 6,000 of them for the 5 nominees. Typically, we have 4. No, we had 6, actually.
Yep.
Typically, we have 4, but we'll stretch it. If there's enough nominees, there are enough great performances, we'll certainly do that. So we had 6 this week, and so don't forget to do that. We typically post it on our website and on social media Sunday, Monday, something like around that time. You have your opportunity to vote for a couple of days. And always, we certainly would love for everybody to check out our written content. Sean does a great job on westmorelandsports.com with our notebook.
Scotty Houseman.
Let's give a shout out to our man House, who was a great baseball player in his own right, but now is one of the starting offensive linemen at Albany. Again, played at Yough, and it was cool hearing Coach Hoffer talk about the fact that him and Scott text before games, and he wished some good luck. I guess he played with his brother, he said, so that was pretty neat. But yeah, so that alumni Q&A is up there right now. You can check that out on our website, our Friday preview. Jack Ridenauer has a Recruiting Thursday with Adam Belinsky right now on our YouTube channel, and
fingers crossed he doesn't jinx Adam Belinsky.
Yeah, let's hope he stays healthy, because unfortunately the last person he interviewed was Olivia Cernuto, the standout basketball and soccer player. She was injured. Prayers to her, by the way, injured against Yough in a 2-1 win earlier this week. Just a fantastic athlete. And so hopefully she's okay. But we gave Jack a little bit of gruff, so we hope Adam will survive that. But yeah, that's what's going on our website. Obviously, scores throughout the night on Friday night. Don't forget on Twitter and the top of our page on our scoreboard, or you can click on scores and find more there. We try to keep you up to date, not only with our broadcast Friday night, but throughout the week and throughout the weekend.
Yeah, and then we have an article typically late Friday night or maybe early hours Saturday, sort of recapping some of the big stories with the highlights of the statistical standouts.
Broadcast links are in there, yeah.
Absolutely. And by the way, you mentioned Olivia Cernuto, soccer player. We also had a couple of soccer broadcasts this week, and we're going to continue to have more all throughout the fall. So we know we got mostly football fans here, but a lot of multi-sport fans that tune in as well that definitely would catch a lot of other good stuff that we have at the high school and college level here on WSN. Well, that'll do it for this edition. Reminder, Friday night, this is your place to be for high school football. We will have a bevy of broadcasts. As you mentioned, we will have all the scores, and we'll bring you the action like no one else can. But for now, let's put a bow on this one. For my colleague Dan Flickinger, Sean Meyers signing off. We'll catch you again. You know the time and place right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network, Wednesday at 7 for Westmoreland on the Gridiron. We'll catch you again next week right here on WSN.
Goodbye.